My mother is moving in. Deal with it or leave. Those 9 words hit me like a sledgehammer to the chest as I stood there in my boxers at 11:58 p.m., still holding the screwdriver I'd been using to fix our porch light. My wife Jennifer stood in the doorway, arms crossed, her phone still glowing from whatever conversation had just ended. "Excuse me," I managed, setting down the tool with deliberate care. "You heard me, David. Mom's situation has gotten worse. The apartment complex is renovating, and she needs somewhere to stay. This house has plenty of room." I looked around the living room of the home I'd inherited from my grandfather 3 years ago. The same house where Jennifer had insisted we install crown molding, where she'd picked out every piece of furniture, where she'd hosted her charity board meetings and yoga retreats. Now she was talking about it like some halfway house. "For how long?" I asked, though something in her tone told me I wouldn't like the answer. "However long it takes." Jennifer's voice carried that edge I'd been hearing more often lately. "Mom's not getting any younger, and frankly, David, it's time you started thinking about family responsibilities instead of just yourself." Family responsibilities. Rich coming from someone who'd been working late 3 nights a week for the past 4 months, always at the office or the yoga studio or some mysterious networking event that never seemed to involve actual networking. "This is my grandfather's house, Jen. Our house. We should discuss major decisions like this." "I just did discuss it. With you, right now." She turned toward the stairs. "Mom will be here Thursday with her things. I suggest you clear out the guest room." That was Tuesday night. By Wednesday morning, I was sitting in my estate attorney's office, a cup of coffee growing cold in my hands while Marcus reviewed the trust documents I'd barely glanced at when I inherited the property. "Well, this is interesting," Marcus said, adjusting his glasses. He was one of those lawyers who looked like he'd been born wearing a 3-piece suit, but he'd handled my family's legal affairs for 20 years. "Very interesting indeed." "What's interesting about my wife's mother moving in? I mean, besides the fact that she didn't ask." Marcus turned the document toward me, pointing to a paragraph buried in the middle of page 4. "Your grandfather included a restrictive covenant. Right here. Property shall not be used as permanent residence for individuals not of direct familial lineage to the grantor. It's legally enforceable under the trust conditions." I leaned forward, reading the dense legal language. "What does that mean in English?" "It means your wife's mother cannot legally live in that house. More importantly, it means if you don't enforce this covenant within 1 year of discovering the violation, you lose the right to enforce it permanently." The coffee suddenly tasted better. "And if someone were to move in on, say, Thursday? Then you'd have exactly 1 year from Thursday to take action." "But David, there's something else." Marcus flipped to another page. "The trust also stipulates that any violation of the residential covenant could result in forfeiture of the property if not addressed within the specified time frame." "Forfeiture to who?" "The state. Your grandfather was very particular about keeping this property within the family line." I left Marcus's office with a copy of the trust documents and a strange feeling in my stomach. Not guilt, something sharper, something that felt almost like anticipation. Thursday arrived with all the subtlety of a marching band. I was replacing the brake pads on my truck in the driveway when the moving van pulled up, followed by Jennifer's Honda and an ancient Buick that could only belong to Vanna Hessler. Vanna emerged from the Buick like a queen stepping from her carriage, all flowing scarves and dramatic gestures. At 68, she'd perfected the art of looking perpetually wronged by the world. Her silver hair was arranged in an elaborate style that probably required an engineering degree to maintain, and her jewelry caught the afternoon sun like a disco ball. "David, sweetie," she called out, arms spread wide as if we were long-lost relatives instead of 2 people who'd barely tolerated each other for 5 years of family gatherings. "Isn't this wonderful? We're going to be one big happy family." Jennifer appeared beside her mother, wearing that tight smile she reserved for situations where she expected resistance. "Mom, let's get you settled in. David can finish whatever he's doing out here." I wiped my hands on a shop rag and watched the movers unload box after box. Furniture wrapped in moving blankets. A rocking chair that looked like it belonged in a museum. Enough belongings to stock a small apartment. "How long did you say this arrangement was for?" I asked Jennifer as she supervised the placement of a massive china cabinet. "We didn't put a timeline on it," Vanna answered before Jennifer could speak. "At my age, you learn to take things one day at a time. Besides, this house is so big, you'll hardly notice I'm here." That evening, I noticed her plenty. Vanna had opinions about everything: the temperature of the house, the brand of coffee I bought, the way I loaded the dishwasher. She'd rearranged the living room furniture to better accommodate her rocking chair, and had somehow claimed the good parking spot in our 2-car driveway. "She's adjusting," Jennifer said when I mentioned the parking situation. "It's temporary." "You keep saying that word. I don't think it means what you think it means." Jennifer's expression hardened. What's that supposed to mean? It means your mother has moved in enough furniture to stock a small house. She's already redecorated our living room, and she's talking about planting a garden in the spring. That doesn't sound temporary to me. Maybe if you made more of an effort to make her feel welcome instead of acting like she's some kind of burden. I never said she was a burden. I said we should have discussed this before making the decision. Some decisions don't require a committee, David. Sometimes you just have to step up and do the right thing. The right thing? I thought about those words later that night as I listened to Vanna's television through the guest room wall. The volume was set loud enough to wake the neighbors, but when I'd mentioned it, she'd claimed her hearing wasn't what it used to be. I pulled out my phone and scrolled through the photos I'd taken of the trust documents. The restrictive covenant stared back at me, black ink on white paper. Legal. Enforceable. Absolute. Maybe Jennifer was right about doing the right thing. Maybe I just had a different definition of what that meant. Friday morning brought the first real test of our new living arrangement. I came downstairs to find Vanna in my kitchen, wearing a bathrobe that had seen better decades, reorganizing my spice rack. Good morning, David. I hope you don't mind, but I took the liberty of organizing these properly. You had paprika next to parsley. That's just chaos waiting to happen. My coffee maker was nowhere to be seen. In its place sat an ancient percolator that looked like it belonged in a museum. Where's my coffee maker? Oh, that little thing? I put it in the pantry. This percolator belonged to my mother. It makes real coffee, not that watery stuff those modern machines produce. I opened the pantry. My coffee maker sat on the top shelf, cord wrapped around it like a noose. Next to it were 3 boxes of my regular coffee, replaced on the counter by something called Mountain Thunder Blend that looked like it had been ground with a hammer. Vanna, I appreciate the thought, but I prefer my coffee maker. Trust me, sweetie, once you taste real coffee, you'll never go back. Now, I was thinking about breakfast. Do you have any real eggs? Not those cage-free things Jennifer buys. I mean real eggs from real chickens. Jennifer appeared in the doorway, already dressed for work in one of her sharp business suits. She surveyed the kitchen reorganization with approval. Mom's quite the homemaker, she said, kissing Vanna's cheek. David, you're lucky to have someone who actually knows how to run a household properly. The implication hung in the air like smoke. I'd been running this household just fine for 3 years, thank you very much, but apparently that was no longer sufficient. I'll be late tonight, Jennifer continued, checking her phone. Board meeting for the Children's Foundation, then drinks with the committee. Don't wait up. Another late night, another mysterious meeting. I watched her grab her keys and head for the door, leaving me alone with Vanna and her percolator. She works so hard, Vanna said, settling into what had apparently become her chair at my kitchen table. Always thinking about others, always trying to make the world better. You're lucky to have such a dedicated wife, David. Yeah, lucky. I managed to extract 1 cup of coffee from the percolator. It tasted like liquid dirt, and escaped to my workshop in the garage. I'd converted half the space into a woodworking area, and I had a custom cabinet job that needed finishing. The familiar smell of sawdust and the weight of hand tools usually helped me think clearly. Today, they helped me think about trust documents and restrictive covenants and the growing pile of evidence that my marriage wasn't what I'd thought it was. My phone buzzed with a text from Jennifer. Forgot to mention, Mom needs to use your truck Saturday. Her car needs inspection, and the Buick isn't reliable for long trips. Long trips. On Saturday, without asking me first. I texted back. Where is she going? The response came 20 minutes later. Doctor appointment in the city, family medical history stuff, important. Important enough to commandeer my truck, apparently, but not important enough to ask instead of inform. I was measuring wood for the cabinet face when I heard voices from the house. Vanna was on the phone, and she wasn't making any effort to keep her voice down. Yo, told you it would work out perfectly. He's not happy about it, but what's he going to do? It's not like he has any choice in the matter. I set down my measuring tape and moved closer to the window that faced the kitchen. Jennifer handled it exactly right. No discussion, just facts. This is happening, deal with it. Men respect strength, even when they don't like it. A pause while whoever was on the other end responded. Oh, he'll adjust. They always do. And if he doesn't, well, Jennifer's got options. She's not exactly hurting for attention these days, if you know what I mean. My hand tightened around the measuring tape. Options. Attention? What exactly was Vanna implying? The yoga instructor is quite handsome. Very flexible. Vanna's laugh was like fingernails on a chalkboard. Jennifer deserves someone who appreciates her ambition instead of holding her back. The yoga instructor. Jennifer had started attending classes at some trendy studio downtown 4 months ago. part of her new wellness journey, she'd called it. The same time the late nights had started. Don't worry about David. He's too comfortable to make waves. Besides, what's he going to do? Throw out a helpless old woman? The conversation continued, but I'd heard enough. I walked back to my workbench and stared at the half-finished cabinet, my mind racing. Jennifer was having an affair with her yoga instructor, and Vanna knew about it. More than knew about it. She was encouraging it. The moving in wasn't about Vanna needing a place to stay, it was about establishing control, about making me the outsider in my own house while Jennifer explored her options. I pulled out my phone and called Marcus. David, everything all right? I need to ask you something about the trust documents. Hypothetically speaking, if someone were to move into the house in violation of the covenant, and I had evidence that it was part of a larger scheme to manipulate or defraud me, would that affect the enforcement timeline? That's specific. Are we still talking hypothetically? For now. Well, hypothetically, evidence of deliberate deception or fraud could strengthen your position significantly. Courts don't look kindly on people who try to circumvent legal documents through manipulation. Why do you ask? Just trying to understand all my options. David, if something's going on, you should document everything. Dates, conversations, any evidence of deceptive behavior. The more documentation you have, the stronger your position becomes. Documentation. I looked around the garage until I found an old notebook I used for project planning. I flipped to a clean page and wrote, Friday, October 13th. Overheard Vanna discussing Jennifer's affair with yoga instructor. Moving in appears to be part of larger manipulation scheme. It felt good to write it down. It felt like taking action. That evening, Jennifer came home at nearly midnight, claiming the board meeting had run long and the committee had decided to extend their discussion over drinks. She smelled like wine and something else, some kind of masculine cologne that definitely wasn't mine. How was your day? She asked, the question automatic and disinterested. Enlightening, I said. She was already heading upstairs, not really listening. That's nice. I'm exhausted. Don't forget Mom needs your truck tomorrow. Right. The doctor appointment. Exactly. Family medical history stuff. Very important. I waited until I heard the shower running upstairs, then walked into the kitchen where Vanna was making herself a cup of tea. Big day tomorrow? I asked casually. Oh yes, very important appointment. You know how these medical things are. Can't put them off. Which doctor are you seeing? Vanna paused, tea bag halfway to her cup. Oh, it's a specialist. You wouldn't know him. Try me. I know a lot of doctors in the city. Dr. Williams. Very exclusive practice. Referral only. Dr. Williams. What kind of specialist? Another pause. Cardiology. Heart issues run in our family. That's strange. Jennifer never mentioned any heart problems in your family. Well, it's not something we like to talk about. Very private family matter. I nodded sympathetically. Of course. Well, I hope everything goes well with Dr. Williams. Thank you, David. You're very understanding. Understanding. Right. I went upstairs and found Jennifer already in bed, her phone charging on the nightstand. She was pretending to be asleep, but her breathing was too controlled, too deliberate. I lay down beside her and stared at the ceiling, listening to the sound of Vanna's television through the wall. Tomorrow, I'd find out exactly where my truck was really going, and then I'd start documenting everything. The game was changing, and it was time I learned the new rules. Saturday morning arrived with the subtlety of a fire alarm. Vanna was up before dawn, bustling around the kitchen in what she claimed was preparation for her important medical appointment. She'd laid out clothes that looked more appropriate for a social gathering than a doctor's visit, a flowing dress with matching jewelry and enough perfume to choke a horse. Are you sure you need my truck for a doctor's appointment? I asked, watching her check her appearance in the hallway mirror for the third time. Oh, yes. The Buick just isn't reliable for city driving, you understand? What I understood was that she was lying, but I handed over the keys anyway, along with a smile that felt like swallowing glass. Drive carefully. Wouldn't want anything to happen to you. You're such a thoughtful boy, David. Boy. At 34 years old, with my own business and my own house, I was still a boy to Vanna Hessler. After she left, I waited exactly 15 minutes, then got in Jennifer's Honda. She was at the gym, or claimed to be, which gave me the perfect opportunity to follow my own truck and see where Vanna's doctor appointment actually led. The GPS tracker I'd installed under the rear bumper the night before made following her unnecessary, but I wanted to see this with my own eyes. Technology was useful, but there was something to be said for old-fashioned surveillance. Vanna drove straight through the city, past the medical district, past the downtown area, and into an upscale neighborhood I recognized. She parked outside a coffee shop called The Daily Grind, the same place Jennifer had mentioned visiting after her yoga classes. I parked across the street and watched through binoculars as Vanna entered the coffee shop. Through the large front windows, I could see her approach a table where a man was waiting. Tall, athletic build, the kind of carefully maintained appearance that screamed personal trainer or lifestyle coach. The yoga instructor, presumably. They talked for nearly an hour, their conversation animated and conspiratorial. Vanna showed him something on her phone. Photos, from the look of it. He laughed at whatever she was showing him, then leaned across the table to squeeze her hand. Very cozy for two people who supposedly barely knew each other. I took photos of everything. The meeting, their body language, the license plate of the expensive SUV the yoga instructor was driving. Then I followed him when he left. His first stop was a high-end apartment complex downtown. His second stop was a yoga studio called Mindful Movement. His third stop was a jewelry store. I parked outside the jewelry store and watched him browse engagement rings. The pieces were falling into place with sickening clarity. Jennifer wasn't just having an affair, she was planning to leave me. And Vanna wasn't just an unwelcome houseguest. She was an active participant in the deception. My phone buzzed with a text from Jennifer. Gym session running long, grabbing lunch with a friend afterward. Home by 3. I checked the time. It was 1:30 p.m. Plenty of time to do some more investigating. I drove to the yoga studio and parked where I could see the entrance. At 2:15, Jennifer's Honda pulled into the parking lot. She got out wearing workout clothes, but her hair and makeup were perfect. Not exactly what you'd expect from someone who'd just spent 2 hours at the gym. She walked into the studio like she owned the place, greeting the receptionist with familiarity that spoke of regular visits. Through the large windows, I could see her talking to the same man Vanna had met at the coffee shop. Their conversation was brief but intimate. He touched her arm. She smiled in a way I hadn't seen in months. When she left 10 minutes later, she was carrying a small bag that definitely hadn't been in her car when she arrived. I followed her home, arriving just minutes after she did. She was in the kitchen when I walked in, still in her workout clothes, hair now artfully messed to look like she'd actually been exercising. "How was the gym?" I asked. "Great workout. Really pushed myself today." She didn't meet my eyes. "How was your morning?" "Quiet. Did some work in the garage. Your mother left for her doctor appointment." "Right. I hope everything goes well." "Me too." She seemed nervous about it. "Mom doesn't like doctors. Never has." I nodded sympathetically. "What kind of specialist was she seeing again?" Jennifer paused, a glass of water halfway to her lips. She didn't say specifically. Something about family medical history. Vanna told me it was a cardiologist, Dr. Williams. "Right. Yes, heart problems." "That's strange, because when I asked you about family medical history when we got married, you said both sides of your family were remarkably healthy." "Well, things change. People get older." "True, although it's unusual for family medical history to change. That's usually something you're born with." Jennifer set down her glass harder than necessary. "What's with all the questions, David? It's just a doctor appointment." "You're right. I'm probably overthinking it." But I wasn't overthinking anything. I was finally thinking clearly for the first time in months. That evening, Vanna returned with my truck and a story about how wonderful Dr. Williams had been, how thorough the examination was, and how she'd need to return for follow-up appointments. She was carrying shopping bags from expensive stores and wearing a new bracelet that definitely hadn't been there that morning. "Successful doctor visit?" I asked. "Oh yes, very productive. Dr. Williams thinks I'm in excellent health for my age." "That's wonderful news. And you did some shopping afterward?" "Just a little therapeutic retail therapy. You know how stressful medical appointments can be." "Of course. Nothing like a new bracelet to celebrate good health." Vanna's hand went instinctively to the jewelry. "This old thing? I've had it for years." "Really? It still has the price tag." She looked down, saw the small tag I'd noticed, and quickly tucked it under her sleeve. "Well, I mean, I've had it put away, never had occasion to wear it until now." "I understand completely." That night, I sat in my workshop and compiled everything I'd learned. Photos of the coffee shop meeting, screenshots from the GPS tracker showing Vanna's real route through the city, pictures of Jennifer at the yoga studio, the timeline of lies and contradictions. I also made a phone call to Dr. Williams's office, the real Dr. Williams, whom I'd found through the medical directory. They'd never heard of Vanna Heslor and had no appointments scheduled for anyone matching her description. The documentation was growing, the evidence was mounting, and my patience was running out. But I wasn't ready to play my hand yet. I wanted to know exactly how deep this conspiracy went before I started tearing it apart. because when I finally made my move, I wanted it to be devastating. Sunday morning brought an unexpected visitor. I was in the garage, pretending to work on the cabinet while actually reviewing the photos I'd taken the day before, when the doorbell rang. Through the window, I could see a woman I didn't recognize standing on my porch. Jennifer answered the door, and I could hear voices, but not words. After a few minutes, she called out, "David, can you come here for a minute?" The woman was middle-aged, professionally dressed, with the kind of serious expression that usually meant trouble. She introduced herself as Margaret Torres from the State Board of Nursing. "I'm here about a complaint that was filed regarding Vanna Heslor's nursing license," she said. "I understand she's currently residing at this address?" Jennifer's face went pale. "What kind of complaint?" "I'm not at liberty to discuss the details, but I do need to speak with Ms. Heslor as soon as possible. Is she available?" Vanna appeared in the doorway, as if summoned, still in her bathrobe, despite it being nearly noon. "Did someone mention my name?" "Ms. Heslor? I'm Margaret Torres from the State Board of Nursing. We need to discuss some concerns that have been raised about your professional conduct." "Professional conduct? I've been retired for 2 years. What possible concerns could there be?" Margaret Torres consulted her tablet. "The complaint involves incidents that occurred during your employment at Riverside Medical Center, specifically medication administration errors and falsification of patient records." The color drained from Vanna's face. That's ridiculous. I was never formally disciplined for anything. According to our records, you were terminated for cause in September 2021. The termination report cites multiple instances of medication errors, including one that resulted in a patient's hospitalization. Those were misunderstandings, miscommunications. Perhaps, but the complaint also includes new evidence, pharmacy records showing you obtained prescription medications under false pretenses, using expired or invalid prescription numbers. I felt something cold settle in my stomach. "What kind of medications?" Margaret Torres looked at me with interest. "Are you a family member, Mr. David Mitchell? This is my house. Vanna is my mother-in-law." "I see. Well, without violating confidentiality, I can tell you that the medications in question include controlled substances, pain management drugs, anxiety medications, and some cardiac medications." Cardiac medications. I thought about the bottle of heart medication I'd been taking for the past 6 months. Prescribed after I'd started having chest pains and irregular heartbeat. The medication Vanna had been helping me manage, making sure I took the right doses at the right times. "Ms. Heslor, you'll need to come to our office for a formal interview. If these allegations are substantiated, your nursing license will be permanently revoked and criminal charges may be filed." After Margaret Torres left, the house fell into an uncomfortable silence. Vanna had disappeared into the guest room, claiming she needed to process this attack on her character. Jennifer paced the living room like a caged animal. "This is insane," she said. "Someone's obviously trying to sabotage Mom. She's been retired for years. Why would anyone file a complaint now? Maybe because someone recently discovered she'd been obtaining medications illegally?" "What are you implying, David?" "I'm not implying anything. I'm asking a direct question. Did you know your mother was getting prescription drugs without valid prescriptions?" "Of course not, and neither was she. This is obviously some kind of mistake or malicious complaint." Margaret Torres seemed pretty confident in her facts. "Margaret Torres is a bureaucrat who's probably never worked a day in healthcare. She doesn't understand how things really work." I studied Jennifer's face, looking for tells. She was angry, but there was something else underneath. Fear, maybe, or guilt. "Jen, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest with me." "What?" "The heart medication I've been taking. Where did it come from originally?" "Your doctor prescribed it. Dr. Patterson. You know that." "Right. But who filled the prescription? Who picked it up from the pharmacy?" Jennifer's pacing slowed. "Mom offered to help with that stuff. She knows about medications, and you were so busy with work. So Vanna has been managing my medication for 6 months?" "She was helping. There's a difference." "Is there? Because according to the nursing board, she's been obtaining medications illegally. And I've been taking medication that she's been giving me. Don't you see the problem here?" "You're being paranoid, David. Mom would never do anything to hurt you." "Wouldn't she? Because from where I'm standing, it looks like she moved into my house under false pretenses, took over managing my medication without my knowledge, and has been working with you to manipulate me into accepting a situation I never agreed to. That's not... You're twisting everything? Am I? Then explain yesterday's doctor appointment, the one that never happened, the one where she spent the day meeting with your yoga instructor instead." The silence that followed was deafening. Jennifer stopped pacing and stared at me with an expression I'd never seen before. part shock, part fear, and part something that looked almost like respect. You followed her. I protected my interests, just like you've been protecting yours. David, I can explain. Can you? Because I'd love to hear how you explain meeting with your yoga instructor to plan your future while your mother moves into my house and takes control of my medication. I'm genuinely curious about your explanation for that. Jennifer sat down heavily on the couch. For a moment, she looked smaller, more vulnerable than I'd seen her in years. It's not what you think. What I think is that you're having an affair, your mother is helping you manipulate me, and both of you have been lying to me for months. Please, tell me what it actually is. Brad, the yoga instructor, he's been helping me figure some things out, about what I want from life, about whether this marriage is really working. And what conclusion did you reach? I don't know yet. That's why I haven't said anything. I needed time to think. Time to think while living in my house, spending my money, and having your mother manage my medication. The medication thing wasn't... Mom was just trying to help. Help with what exactly? Because according to the nursing board, she's been obtaining drugs illegally, and I've been having unexplained symptoms for months, fatigue, confusion, mood swings, symptoms that started right around the time she began helping with my medication. The implications hung in the air between us. Jennifer's face went through a series of expressions: denial, realization, and finally, horror. You think Mom was drugging you? I think your mother has a history of medication errors that resulted in patient harm. I think she's been obtaining prescription drugs illegally. And I think I've been experiencing symptoms consistent with medication tampering. What do you think? Jennifer stood up abruptly. I need to talk to her. No. What you need to do is stay right here while I call Dr. Patterson and ask him to run some tests. Because if your mother has been poisoning me, even in small doses, there might still be evidence in my system. David, please, let me talk to her first. If something's been going wrong with your medication, it has to be an accident. Mom would never intentionally hurt anyone. The nursing board seems to disagree. I pulled out my phone and dialed Dr. Patterson's emergency line. While I waited for him to call back, I watched Jennifer struggle with the reality of what we were discussing. If you're right, she said quietly, if Mom has been tampering with your medication, I didn't know. I swear to you, I didn't know. But you knew about the affair. It's not an affair. Not really. You've been planning to leave me. I've been thinking about it. There's a difference. Is there? Because from where I'm standing, planning and thinking look pretty similar. Dr. Patterson called back within 10 minutes. After I explained the situation, he agreed to meet me at his office for emergency testing. Dirt work, urine analysis, hair samples, anything that might show evidence of medication, tampering, or poisoning. David, Jennifer said as I headed for the door, what happens if you're right about the medication? Then your mother goes to prison, and you and I have a very different conversation about the future of this marriage. And if you're wrong? I looked back at her, this woman I'd thought I knew, sitting in the house I'd inherited from my grandfather, defending the mother who might have been slowly poisoning me. If I'm wrong, then I owe both of you an apology. But Jen, I don't think I'm wrong. The test would take 24 hours to process, 24 hours to find out if my marriage was just falling apart or if it was something much worse, 24 hours to decide what kind of man I was going to be when this was all over. Dr. Patterson called at 7:43 a.m. Monday morning with results that confirmed my worst suspicions. David, we need to talk immediately. Can you come in this morning? How bad is it? Bad enough that I'm recommending you contact the police. The levels of cardiac medication in your system are nearly 3 times what I prescribed. If this had continued much longer, you could have had serious heart complications. I sat in my truck in the parking lot of Dr. Patterson's office, staring at the lab results. Digitalis toxicity. Elevated levels of pressure-regulating medication I had never been prescribed. Traces of anti-anxiety drugs that finally explained the mood swings and confusion I'd been experiencing for months. Vanna hadn't just been managing my medication. She'd been systematically poisoning me. My phone rang. Jennifer. David, where are you? Mom's really upset about yesterday, and I think we should all sit down and talk this through. I'm at Dr. Patterson's office, getting the results of my tests. And? And your mother has been poisoning me for 6 months. The police are on their way to the house now. The silence stretched so long, I thought the call had dropped. Jennifer? Are you there? This can't be right. There has to be some mistake. No mistake. Dr. Patterson is filing a report with the police and the medical board. Your mother is going to be arrested for assault, fraud, and practicing nursing without a valid license. David, please, come home. Let's figure this out together. There's nothing to figure out. I'm done being manipulated, and I'm done being poisoned. I hung up and drove home to find 2 police cars in my driveway. Through the front window, I could see Vanna in handcuffs, being read her rights by a uniformed officer. Jennifer stood nearby, crying and talking rapidly to a detective. Detective Sarah Morrison was a compact woman with sharp eyes and the kind of no-nonsense attitude that probably served her well in this job. She took my statement in the kitchen while the crime scene team collected evidence from the guest room. "How long have you suspected medication tampering?" she asked. "Consciously? Since yesterday. But I've been having symptoms for months. Fatigue, confusion, mood swings, irregular heartbeat. My wife and her mother convinced me it was stress from work." "And your wife knew about the medication management?" "She arranged it. Said her mother's nursing background made her the perfect person to help me stay organized with my prescriptions." Detective Morrison made notes in her pad. "We'll need to test all the medications in the house. Based on what Dr. Patterson found in your system, it looks like Mrs. Heslor was either substituting your prescribed medications with different drugs or adding additional medications to what you were taking." "What's the penalty for something like this?" "Depends on what we find, but we're looking at assault with a dangerous weapon, fraud, practicing nursing without a license, and possibly attempted manslaughter if we can prove intent to cause serious harm." Through the kitchen window, I watched Vanna being loaded into the back of a police car. She was still talking, gesturing animatedly, probably spinning some story about how this was all a misunderstanding. Jennifer appeared in the doorway, her face streaked with tears and mascara. "David, please. You have to know I didn't know about any of this. I would never have let her hurt you. But you knew about the affair." Detective Morrison looked up from her notes with interest. "What affair?" she asked. "My wife has been seeing her yoga instructor. Her mother was helping coordinate their meetings." "Jennifer, is this true?" Jennifer looked between us, trapped. It's complicated." "It's really not," I said. "She's been planning to leave me while living in my house and letting her mother manage my medication. The only complicated part is figuring out whether the poisoning was meant to make me more compliant or just incapacitate me completely." "That's not fair, David. I never wanted you to be hurt." "No? Then why didn't you question why I was suddenly having health problems right after your mother moved in? Why didn't you think it was strange that she was so eager to manage my medication? Why didn't you notice that I was becoming a different person?" I thought you were just stressed about Mom living here." "Convenient. Very convenient." Detective Morrison closed her notebook. "Mr. Mitchell, we'll need you to come to the station later today to give a formal statement. Mrs. Mitchell, you should probably contact a lawyer." "A lawyer? Why would I need a lawyer?" "Because if we find evidence that you knew about or participated in the medication tampering, you could be charged as an accessory." After the police left, Jennifer and I sat in our living room. The same room where Vanna had rearranged all the furniture, where she'd held court every evening, where she'd planned my systematic poisoning while pretending to be a helpful family member. "I want her things out of this house today," I said. "David, she's been arrested. She can't move her things." "Then you move them, or I'll have them donated to charity. I don't care which. This is still my house, too." "Actually, it's not." I pulled out the trust documents Marcus had prepared and set them on the coffee table. "This house belongs to me, inherited from my grandfather under a trust that specifically prohibits non-family members from living here permanently. Your mother's residence here violated the terms of the trust. You knew about the violation, and you participated in a scheme to manipulate me into accepting it." Jennifer picked up the documents and read them, her face growing paler with each page. "You can't be serious." "I'm completely serious. You have until the end of the week to decide whether you want to try to save this marriage or continue planning your exit strategy with Brad the yoga instructor. But your mother is never setting foot in this house again." "Where am I supposed to go if you throw me out?" "That's not my problem anymore. You made your choices, Jen. You chose to have an affair. You chose to move your mother into my house without asking. You chose to let her manage my medication without questioning why I was getting sicker. You chose to lie to me for months while planning your future with another man. I never slept with him. I don't care. You betrayed me in every way that matters. The only question now is whether you want to try to fix this or make it official." Jennifer stood up, the trust documents clutched in her hands. "You've changed, David. You're not the man I married." "You're right. The man you married was naive enough to trust you. He was passive enough to let you make decisions for him. He was weak enough to let your mother poison him for 6 months without fighting back. And now?" I looked around the living room, at the furniture Vanna had rearranged, at the space where her rocking chair had dominated the room, at the evidence of months of manipulation and control. Now I'm someone who fights back. That evening, I helped Jennifer load Vanna's belongings into a rented truck. Most of it would go into storage until Vanna's legal situation was resolved. Some of it, the medications she'd hidden in her room, the fake prescription bottles, the notebook where she'd apparently been tracking my symptoms, would become evidence in her criminal case. As Jennifer drove away with the last load, I stood in my driveway and looked at my house. For the first time in months, it felt like mine again. But I wasn't done. Not yet. Because while Vanna would face criminal charges for the poisoning, Jennifer had made choices too. And choices had consequences. It was time she learned what those consequences looked like. Jennifer returned from the storage facility at nearly 10 p.m., looking exhausted and defeated. She found me in the kitchen, sitting at the table with a stack of papers and my laptop open. "What's all this?" she asked. "Research, financial records, phone bills, credit card statements. I've been documenting everything." She sat down across from me, wariness replacing exhaustion in her expression. "Documenting what?" "The affair, for starters. Hotel receipts on your credit card that match dates when you claim to be working late. Charges at restaurants I've never been to. A jewelry store purchase for $1,200 last month. I assume that was for Brad?" Jennifer's silence was confirmation enough. "Then there are the financial irregularities. Did you think I wouldn't notice the money transfers to your mother? $18,000 over the past 6 months, supposedly for her medical expenses and living costs. Mom needed help. Mom needed help buying expensive jewelry and clothes while she was poisoning me. Those weren't medical expenses, Jennifer. They were payments. Payments for what? For services rendered, for moving in here and taking control, for managing my medication, for helping you plan your exit strategy." I turned the laptop screen toward her. Bank statements, credit card records, a timeline that painted a clear picture of conspiracy and fraud. "You've been funding a scheme to incapacitate me while you planned to leave me. The only question is whether you intended for the poisoning to be temporary or permanent." "That's insane, David. I would never..." "Wouldn't you? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you and your mother developed a plan to make me sick, confused, and dependent while you explored your options with Brad. When you were ready to leave, you'd have me declared mentally incompetent, take control of my assets, and disappear with your yoga instructor. You're being paranoid." "Am I? Then explain this." I slid another document across the table, a copy of a life insurance policy I'd discovered in Jennifer's desk drawer. "When did you take out $1 million life insurance policy on me?" Jennifer stared at the document, her face going pale. That's just standard financial planning. Married couples often have life insurance policies on each other. This policy was taken out 3 weeks after your mother moved in, 3 weeks after she started managing my medication, and you're the sole beneficiary. David, you're scaring me. Good. You should be scared. Because if your mother had continued poisoning me, and if my heart had given out from the medication she was giving me, you would have collected $1 million and started a new life with Brad. That's not... I never wanted you to get hurt. But you didn't mind if I got sick. You didn't mind if I became confused and dependent. You didn't mind if I lost the ability to think clearly enough to question what was happening to me. I closed the laptop and gathered the papers. I called Marcus today. He's drawing up divorce papers. You can contest them if you want, but given the evidence of fraud, conspiracy, and your participation in a scheme that resulted in my being poisoned, I don't think you'll like how that turns out. What do you want from me, David? I want you out of my house. I want you to take responsibility for what you've done, and I want you to understand that actions have consequences. And if I don't agree to the divorce, then we go to court, and all of this becomes public record. Your affair, your mother's criminal charges, the insurance policy, the financial fraud, all of it. Your reputation, your career, your relationship with Brad, everything gets destroyed in open court. Jennifer was quiet for a long time, staring at the insurance policy document. How long have you known? She asked finally. About the affair, since Saturday, about the poisoning, since this morning, about the insurance policy, since this afternoon. And you've been planning this whole conversation. I've been planning my response to your betrayal. There's a difference. What happens to us, David? After all this? I looked at this woman I'd thought I knew, this person I'd shared a bed with for 5 years, who had systematically betrayed me while I was being poisoned by her mother. There is no us anymore, Jennifer. You made sure of that. She nodded slowly, tears starting to fall. I know you don't believe me, but I never wanted you to get hurt. I felt trapped, like I was suffocating in this life, in this marriage. When I met Brad, he made me feel alive again. So you decided to destroy me instead of just leaving me. I didn't know what Mom was doing with your medication. I swear to you, I didn't know. But you knew she was lying about her doctor appointments. You knew she was meeting with Brad. You knew she was helping you plan your affair. Yes. And you knew I was getting sicker, more confused, more dependent on both of you. I thought it was just stress. You thought what was convenient to think. Jennifer wiped her eyes and stood up. I'll pack my things tonight. I can stay at my sister's until I find an apartment. Good. David, for what it's worth, I'm sorry. I'm sorry for all of it. I watched her walk upstairs to pack. This woman who had shared my life and nearly ended it. Sorry wasn't enough. Sorry didn't undo months of poisoning. Sorry didn't erase the betrayal or the lies or the systematic destruction of everything I'd thought was real. But it was a start. 2 hours later, Jennifer loaded her car with suitcases and boxes. She stood in the doorway for a moment, looking back at the house that had been our home. Will you be all right? She asked. I'll be better than all right. I'll be free. After she left, I walked through the house, room by room, the guest room where Vanna had plotted my downfall, the kitchen where she'd replaced my coffee maker and reorganized my spices, the living room where she'd moved furniture and held court every evening. Tomorrow, I'd start putting everything back the way it was before they arrived. I'd change the locks, update my will, and begin the process of reclaiming my life. But tonight, I sat in my workshop with a glass of whiskey and thought about the man I'd been 6 months ago. Trusting, passive, willing to let other people make decisions for him. That man was gone, replaced by someone harder, more suspicious, less willing to give people the benefit of the doubt. Maybe that was a loss. Maybe something innocent and trusting had been poisoned out of me along with everything else. But maybe it was also a gift. Maybe learning that people you love can systematically betray you while smiling to your face was a lesson worth learning, even if it came at a terrible price. I raised my glass to the empty house, to the silence that was finally my own. To new beginnings, I said to no one at all, and for the first time in months, I slept peacefully in my own bed, in my own house, without wondering what poison tomorrow might bring.